August 1944 now, Elsie Shrigley and Donald Watson, they then go to the Vegetarian Society and they propose this non-dairy section. Watson kind of reports on it. The thing you can see to the left there, the Vegan News, that's the document that was the first document that the Vegan Society produced, and it was written by Donald Watson. He says that there were sympathizers within the vegetarian movement to the idea of a non-dairy section within that movement. But ultimately, it was rejected. The Vegetarian Society said, look, we actually want to concentrate on opposing flesh consumption. And also another strand as well, which was the fact that a lot of vegetarians thought that if you avoided animal products completely, you would die. And so the early vegans had to contend with the fact that a lot of their vegetarian friends, a lot of the doctors that they knew and the general public, obviously, all said that they were going to perish because, it wasn't possible for human beings to live this way. Which is why, incidentally, in the very early years of the vegan social movement, there was a big focus on health because they had to kind of prove that it was a feasible thing to do. So that was the big thing. And it wasn't until to the end of the 1940s when suddenly, people like Leslie Cross in particular said, okay, we've sorted that out. We now need to focus on vegan philosophy and, sort that bit out, which took place in the early years of the 1950s. So the Vegetarian Committee said to Shrigley and Watson that they would be freer if they worked on their own and separate. So they suggested that they worked independently of the Vegetarian Society. I always claim that this was a huge favor for our movement. I'm not convinced that the philosophy that eventually blossomed by the time we get to something like 1955, I'm not convinced that it would have arose if the vegans, as it were, would have been subsumed within the vegetarian movement. So I think it did us a great deal. In fact, they said that we would be freer to do our own thing. And one of the things that they did do was evolve what we now regard as vegan philosophy. So I think that is true. Shrigley declared that the new vegans were idealistic. And other movement historians like Samantha Calvert of the Vegan Society point out that there was a bit of an anti-establishment thrust within the vegan movement founders. And Cross declared that he thought of vegans as pioneers. And Watson said that they have a spirit of pioneers amongst them in that first document. And veganism didn't have a name at this stage. In fact, in this first document, Watson is actually asking, what do you think? There's a bit of a vote. I don't think there's many members at the time, but there was a bit of a vote. I mean, there was interesting that people put forward ideas like dairy ban and stuff. And so luckily we ended up with vegan, I think, which was good.